committee, which should meet at least once at the beginning to set the calendar and the schedule, because it would be more effective to have certain tasks done by a subcommittee than by 12 people.
By Mr. Jeanneroux and then followed by Mr. Albus.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to echo the thoughts of Mr. Baker and Mr. Longfield and some of the thoughts that were just shared by Madame Posé. Given the amount of time that we've already lost and the limited time we have left to get the work that we need to get done accomplished, I feel that the steering committee is a valuable tool for us to be able to free up some time that we can use more effectively as members of this committee. You know, setting the agendas, prioritizing the motions, these are all things that if we tried to do it as a committee, you know, all of us together, would take a significant amount of time. And, you know, the limited amount of time that the steering committee was able to do their work, they were quite effective. They were able to work together to prioritize motions and free us up to be able to focus on other work. So for me, I think that the limited time and the time we've lost actually only reinforces the need for the steering committee. What role perhaps it can play moving forward, maybe we can have a chat about that, but I think we definitely do need the steering committee moving forward. Thank you,
Mr. Jeanneroux.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I actually lowered my hand because I thought, you know, a lot had been said, but just I think two important points just to raise in support of my colleague, Mr. Albus. You know, we're in a minority parliament, so I do feel that as somebody wouldn't be necessarily on a subcommittee, having that say in what sets the agenda, I think is important for all of us, and that's incumbent upon, you know, Mr. Baker, Mr. Longfield as well. But the second point, I think, is these subcommittees were put in place back when we were all meeting every day in Parliament in the precinct. Now that we're all virtual, you know, the ability to have that discussion is a lot more easier than it would have been, you know, through the midst of going to question period, then going back to committee and trying to fit it in within the day. It's a lot easier to fit it in these meetings now virtual, at least that's what I find. So I'll just throw those comments on the table, Madam Chair, in support of my colleague, Mr. Albus.
Mr. Albus?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And just to give some further context for the committee, look, I understand that there's always concerns when you take something that is regularly done by a committee, but I would just say the following things. First of all, anything that is forwarded to the steering committee involves the clerk and the analyst and the chair and the vice chairs to all find it another time. Then the work is given to them. Then we go through multiple discussions, which may not always be able to be reflective of all members, because sometimes an individual member will see an issue, and if they had a timely intervention, would save the whole committee a lot of process. And then it gets forwarded to a future meeting where we as a committee then go through a full argument again over a particular issue before we agree to it. So in terms of saving time, I don't think that's there. The only time that I've really seen a subcommittee or steering committee really do good work was on the Joint Standing Committee of the Scrutiny of Regulations. And the reason for that is the committee wanted to update its approach in how staff make reports to members, both of the Senate and of our own House. And quite honestly, there was a lot of technical information as we went. Do we want to have briefing notes 3 pages long? How, you know, what's the standard template? Those are things that I totally agree should be studied by the committee. So I would just simply say, if we can get support for this today, just to eliminate it. If it looks like we're hitting impasses, if it looks like collaboration would be done better by 4 individual MPs rather than all of us, I've already heard from my Conservative members that we will get our own house in order when we come to committee so that we can make decisions. So I'm not sure if other parties feel that they're in the same situation. If they are, I would say that we wouldn't need to have the steering committee. And lastly, I would just say that again, Madam Chair, each one of us has been sent by our constituents, and sometimes we'll see something from an angle that the other ones don't. You know, I gotta say, my committee members are fantastic. They bring up points to me that I never would have considered. And so I plan on utilizing that. And I think, quite honestly, we can move, just simply eliminate. And if we want to, in a month, change that, we can.
Any more arguments? Yes, Mr. Redekop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What my colleague just mentioned were the points that I was going to make, but I just want to reiterate a couple things. In the last iteration of this committee, I think we worked well together, and so I don't anticipate there's going to be a lot of issues with setting the agenda with, you know, where we're going to get bogged down in some of the technicalities that were mentioned. And so I strongly agree that we can deal with this as a group together. It's, I think, better for all of us to be able to have a say if we need to have that, similar to the points that were just mentioned. And so I would very much like to see this committee not be a standard routine. And as my colleague was just saying, if we do get into a situation of being bogged down for whatever reason, where it does make sense that maybe it should be taken essentially offline to a smaller group, that's definitely something we can do at the time and as needed. But I think as a general, quite efficiently at the committee level.
Madame Collins, you had your hand up and I must have missed it. Sorry about that.
No, that's great, and congratulations on your appointment as chair of this committee. And this conversation, I guess I'm not completely clear on what the impacts would be. So in our last session, we had a subcommittee. It met at an alternate time. Would getting rid of the subcommittee free up some extra committee time? Is that correct? Or are we just losing additional time to have the discussion? Because I guess in my opinion, I'm open to having all the committee members be part of the discussions around what's on the agenda and how we debate things. I think either way is fine for me. But ultimately, I just want to move forward as quickly as possible. So if I could get some clarity around what this would actually mean.
Mr. Longfield, did you have your hand up? No. So, Ms. Collins, I have been in Parliament for quite a long time now, and I sit on different subcommittees, and I find subcommittees are more efficient because you represent your constituents, your party, etc., and you bring that thinking to the subcommittee. The steering committee just creates an agenda because all the motions come in of to what to study, when to study, and the steering committee's job, we could limit it to creating a timetable saying, here are the days available and here is the slots we have filled up. What do you, the whole committee, think? And it doesn't take away the committee time. It just asks the 3 or 4 members to give some time to discuss the schedule for the year. That's it. We do not want to make it into it is never a decision-making body because it is just there to ensure people's input. So if, yes, Mr. Baker, I'll get you immediately. We will, if, for example, the Conservative caucus or the Liberal caucus or the NDP caucus or the Bloc caucus, they say, here is my representation, here is what I need to put before, here are my motions. So the whole committee decides the motions and says, okay, we will study it. Then subcommittee will say, here is our timetable and we'll work with the clerk and the analyst to see how many meetings, what is the decision, etc. So I've always found, whether I was the chair of some of the committees during a minority parliament or I was on the vice chair, I found those very important because they cut down the committee's time. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, let me know. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and if I could, I just wanted to respond to Ms. Collins's question, and I think, Chair, that you did that effectively. But if I could just add, I think for clarification, my understanding and my experience so far has been that the subcommittee meets, or the steering committee meets separately from the broader committee at a separate time, which allows the full committee to spend more time, to dedicate its time to the substance of the matter that we're here to discuss, and the subcommittee is like a delegated group of people that's meant to come to agreement on some of the things like the agenda and the process and everything else. From my point of view, it would be better to have the steering committee in place, and then we can use it as we as a committee see fit as we move forward, and delegate these sorts of procedural or process items to that subcommittee, so we can focus our time on the substance of it. So that would be my suggestion, that we keep it, but that we use it, as Madame Posé alluded to earlier, that we use it, appropriately and selectively.
Mr. Longfield, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I think that Dan makes a good point that we are in a minority government, and if we move to send something to the subcommittee, then if it isn't the will of the committee, it's not going to happen. It's not like we can force things either way. So I think that having the vehicle there, I agree with. If there's multiple motions, we've got some from last time. There's probably some more coming forward that we're going to need to discuss. We get the priorities in that subcommittee, go back to our colleagues to say, we've got consensus around this, and hopefully things coming back from the subcommittee has some consensus around it, so that we can explain how the discussion went. When it comes to committee, then we save ourselves some time, having had the more substantive discussion outside of the main committee work. And so I think having the vehicle there is good. I think we have some checks and balances in terms of the numbers of votes on the committee. And so keeping it in place is something that hopefully Dan can live with, as long as we're not going to try and overuse it. If we try to overuse it, it can get shut down by the votes that we have in the committee.
Okay, do I have any more interventions? Seeing none, can we take a vote on it? Those in favor of Mr. Albus's motion to eliminate the steering committee, please put your hands up.
Mrs. Ratanzi, if I may,
Sure.
As per the order adopted in the House earlier this session, all the votes in committee have to be done by recorded division. So therefore, I need to.
Okay. So sorry, Mr. Clerk, this is getting to be a virtual thing. Go ahead, Roger. You can take it.
Okay, Mr. Baker.
Just for clarification, Chair. So we're voting on Mr. Albus's motion that we remove the steering, the subcommittee. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I vote against Mr. Albus's motion.
Mr. Longfield.
Against.
Mr. Saini.
Against.
Mr. Zuberi.
Against.
Mr. Shifke.
Against.
Mr. Albus.
For.
Monsieur Godin.
Je suis pour.
Mr. Godin, for.
In favor.
Mr. Redekop.
In favor.
Madame Posé.
Ms. Posey. Ms. Posey. Against.
Vote again.
Yeas pour, 4, 4. Nays contre, 7, 7.
And so the motion is defeated. And so the steering committee stays. Mr. Longfield, continue on with the routine motion.
So that would be an amendment. So if we then need to pass the main motion, which is that the subcommittee on agenda and procedure be established and be composed of 5 members, the chair, 1 member from each party, and that the subcommittee work in the spirit of collaboration.
I guess that nobody is going to challenge that now.
Okay, trying to be thorough. A meeting without a quorum, that the chair be authorized to hold meetings to receive evidence and to have evidence printed when a quorum is not present, provided that at least 4 members are present, including 1 member of the opposition and 1 member of the government. But when traveling outside the parliamentary precinct, that the meeting begin after 15 minutes, regardless of members present.
Ms. Collins, you had your hand up?
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to make an amendment to the section that reads that at least 4 members are present, and then changing, including 2 members of the opposition and 2 members of the government.
Any questions, concerns? Mr. Clerk, how should we proceed with that?
If there is unanimous consent, we can adopt. If not, we do a recorded vote.
Do we have a unanimous consent to adopt Ms. Collins' motion? Madame Posé.
Il n'y a pas de consentement unanime, Madame Posé?
There is no unanimous consent.
À ma collègue de répéter, mais aussi de donner un argumentaire. Je ne comprends pas pourquoi la modification.
We can't hear you. Can you stay near to your mic, please? Madame Posé, votre micro. Oui. Peut-être, oui. Merci. Commencez.
Est-ce que ça va mieux?
Oui, oui.
Okay.
Is better? So I would like to ask Mrs. Collins to repeat her proposal and to explain why.
Amend the section that starts that at least 4 members are present, comma, and the section that will change will be including 2 members of the opposition and 2 members of the government. And this, as an explanation, this is something that many committees have already done. There are a few committees that have 1 member of the opposition and 1 member of the government, but we need members from the opposition to have a meeting.
Okay, so Madame Posé, do you have any other further questions? Vous êtes d'accord avec la décision?
Do you agree with the amendment?
Unanimous consent on changing it from what it is now to 2 members of the opposition and 2 members of the government? I need unanimous consent. Oui? Okay, so that's carried. Next.
Thank you. Time for opening remarks and questioning of witnesses. That the witnesses be given 10 minutes for their opening statement, that at the discretion of the chair during the questioning of witnesses, there be allocated 6 minutes for the first questioner of each party as follows. Round 1, Conservative Party, Liberal Party, Bloc Québécois, New Democrat Party. For the second and subsequent rounds, the order and time for questioning would be as follows. Conservative Party 5 minutes, Liberal Party 5 minutes, Conservative Party 5 minutes, Liberal Party 5 minutes, Bloc Québécois 2.5 minutes, New Democratic Party 2.5 minutes.
Madame Collins, après Madame Posé.
Mrs. Collins, after Mrs. Posé.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to move an amendment.
Il y avait des...
Oh, sorry, Monique or Madame Posé?
Okay.
You're speaking, Ms. Collins.
Yeah, I move that for the second and subsequent rounds, the order and time for questioning be as follows. 1, Conservative Party, 5 minutes. 2, Liberal Party, 5 minutes. 3, Bloc Québécois, 2.5 minutes. 4, New Democratic Party, 2.5 minutes. 5, Conservative Party, 5 minutes. 6, Liberal Party, 5 minutes.
Madame Posé.
Madame Posé, I agree with Mrs. Collins, but at the start, when we say that the witnesses be given 10 minutes, so we can have 2 rounds, with 10 minutes each time for the witnesses.
Mr. Longfield, did you read 10 minutes for the witness?
Yeah, that the witnesses be given 10 minutes for their opening statement, and that at the discretion of the chair, during the questioning of witnesses, there be allocated 6 minutes for the first questioner. So yes.
Okay, so Madame Posé, what are you proposing?
So
C'est que les témoins disposent
that witnesses be given 5 minutes only for the opening statement.
One is the witnesses being given 5 minutes, depending on the number of witnesses or whatever. So to a maximum of 10 minutes, Madame Posé? Yes.
No, no. I really go with 5 minutes for the opening statement, and then we go with what's written. I think this way, the second round, everybody would have the same time. It's an issue of equity.
Mr. Longfield.
Sure, I think, and seeing how technology goes sometimes not in our favor, I think it's a good idea to get the Bloc Québécois and the New Democratic Party moved up in the schedule. I think given the work that we're trying to accomplish to give witnesses 10 minutes, but still moving the Bloc Québécois and NDP up in the schedule, will give both the witnesses time to present to us up to 10 minutes. They don't need to use it, of course, and also make sure that in the second round that the NDP and Bloc Québécois get a chance.
So, Madame
I would
Posé,
say holding 10 minutes, but moving them up might accomplish what Madame Posé was looking for.
Madame Posé is looking for 5 minutes per witness.
Yes, but if we move NDP, oh, sorry. Oh.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get clear the confusion. If witnesses were to be, instead of 10 minutes, 5 minutes, is everybody in agreement with that? Because that gives the committee more time to ask questions. But if you're not in agreement, then we'll have to go to a recorded vote. Everybody in agreement with giving Madame Posé's suggestion, 5 minutes to the witnesses?
5 minutes is adequate.
Adequate? Sure. Oui? Okay. The next one is Ms. Collins. So Madame Posé is finished. Madame Collins was suggesting a change in the speaking order in the second round. Madame Collins, would you repeat what you said, please? What was your speaking order?
That for the second and subsequent rounds, the order and time for questioning be as follows. The Conservative Party, 5 minutes. Liberal Party, 5 minutes. Bloc Québécois, 2.5 minutes. New Democratic Party, 2.5 minutes. Conservative Party, 5 minutes. Liberal Party, 5 minutes.
D'accord?
D'accord.
Oui? Okay.
Madame
Oui.
President?
Yes.
So just a quick question to committee members, and maybe if this is the wrong stage, the clerk could clarify. One thing, I think it's great that we're going to a 5-minute structure where people can get their points out, but I also believe in doing my homework. Is there anything in this motion or a subsequent motion for routine procedures that would have someone, if they're going to come to the committee, that they submit early enough, like 3 days prior, so that we can have their opening statement translated? I'm a big believer. In some cases, we are funding people to attend in person. So I just would like that ability so that we can have the benefit of their opening statement when they come.
I will let Roger answer that, but I think in this virtual parliament, we are only going to have witnesses virtually. But Roger, you can correct me and let me know if that's the case. And Mr. Albus, normally witnesses do submit their material in advance, and we do get it in advance. Roger, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We don't have a routine motion in committee, and we did not have a routine motion in committee to that effect to submit the documents 3 days in advance. The committee can adopt such a motion if it wishes. I would just caution the committee that sometimes witnesses don't always want to give their documents 3 days in advance, and sometimes they want to give the documents the day of their presentation. Sometimes some meetings are canceled, and they would like to not their documents to be presented if they're not appearing before the committee. So I can certainly ask if the committee passes a motion. I'll do whatever is in my power to get the documents 3 days in advance. It's just that it might not always be possible to do so.
So today, sorry, Mr. Longfield, go for it.
Yeah, I think now that we have a 5-minute witness presentation, I'm confident that you can manage our committee time in keeping the standing orders the way they are for the other committees as well, that we have the speaking order on the second round with Conservative Liberal Bloc and NDP, the way we have in what's in front of us. So I would be against the motion of changing that, and I'd like to stay with what we have.
Monsieur Godin.
Oui, bonjour, Madame la Présidente.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and congratulations on being appointed chair. I understand that witnesses sometimes do not want to provide their statements ahead of time, but it's up to the committee to decide on the process. If the witnesses are not willing to respect the process, then they are losing an opportunity to defend their position. So as long as it's possible, I think we can accept on an exceptional basis not having the statements ahead of time, but we should always ask for them ahead of time to facilitate our work. And I think to reduce the time to 5 minutes for the opening statement, then we'll have enough time to do our own work as MPs.
Need 5 minutes for the opening statements. What Mr. Albus proposed, the clerk indicated that there is no motion, but the committee is a master of its own destiny. And when we call witnesses, we will ask witnesses. When we do, so the steering committee, for example, does a study or a timetable, then it will say, here is the studies, here are the witnesses that has been presented by each party. And when the witnesses come, we'll ask them 3 days in advance. It's our job to ask. So nobody can override us. But I have another thing that Mr. Longfield has put on the table, and that is the speaking order for the second round be the same as been suggested in the motion. Correct, Mr. Longfield?
I was just saying that as background why I wouldn't be supporting the change.
Okay, so
there is an amendment on the floor to change this, and I said I wouldn't be supporting. I'd rather go back to where we were. Now that we have 5 minutes speaking time, I think that gives you lots of time to manage the committee.
Okay, Mrs. Collins, you had your hand up.
I'm sorry, I just was a little bit lost. Did Mr. Albus put a motion on the floor to? Okay.
No, he didn't put a motion. He was just asking a question, and my response to Mr. Godin was that what Mr. Albus asked, the clerk had clarified. So, Mr. Roger, I think we need to take a vote on Ms. Collins' amendment to the speaking order for the second round. You want to repeat what Ms. Collins?
Yes, absolutely. So the amendment by Mrs. Collins is that we keep the first part of the motion as is, but for the second and subsequent rounds, the order and time of questioning be as follows. Conservative Party, 5 minutes. Liberal Party, 5 minutes. Bloc Québécois, 2.5 minutes. New Democratic Party, 2.5 minutes. Conservative Party, 5 minutes. Liberal Party, 5 minutes. Now I will call the names if you are in agreement or against the motion. Mr. Baker.
I'm opposed to the motion.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini,
Je vote contre la motion.
Against.
Barry,
I'm against the motion.
Mr. Schiefke,
I'm against the motion.
Mr. Albus,
For the motion.
Monsieur Godin,
Je suis pour.
In favor.
Généraux,
In favor of the motion.
Mr. Redekop,
In favor of the motion.
Madame Posé,
Pour.
In favor.
Madame Collins,
In favor of the motion.
pour, yeas, 6, nays contre, 5, 5.
So the motion is carried. Okay, somebody raised their hand and I didn't see it. Yes, Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And with your permission and with the permission of other committee members, I'm not going to be putting a motion forward to affect my concern about not receiving documents in time, but I am going to ask, I'm going to meet with other parties and perhaps bring a motion if there's some agreement or at least some feedback from other parties. I just believe I have a member from Quebec, and the majority of stakeholders will inevitably be from other areas that will not submit, in both official languages all the time. And I want to stand up for our members from Quebec to make sure that they have the courtesy of being able to read in advance in their own language. So I just hope other members will be amenable to me contacting them, and just so we can get some agreement on wordings.
Okay, good, thank you. Madame Posé, vous avez une question?
You have a question? I'd like to make sure when Roger read the time, I think he said that witnesses been given 10 minutes, but I thought we had agreed on 5 minutes. Well, maybe I'm mistaken.
Madame Posé, c'est qu'on avait déjà adopté.
Madame Posé, we had already approved the 5 minutes for the witnesses. So the first part, I said, did not change. But of course, with the amendment that was approved, and I went straight away to the second part of the motion. So the witnesses indeed will be given 5 minutes, as you said, and the NDP and the bloc will be higher in the list of in the order of intervention.
Phil, your next routine motion.
So actually, if we can just accept that motion now as amended.
Madame Collins, did you have something else to say? We are voting on the amended motion. No? Yes?
I can wait. It's about a previous motion, so we can finish this up first.
Okay. So everybody in favor of the amended motion? Yes. Yes, Mr. Did you raise a hand to speak, Mr. Albus, or just
No,
approve? Yeah, okay.
No, I was going to say, so we should just use unanimous consent and,
Yes.
for these things.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Longfield?
Okay, document distribution. That the clerk of the committee be authorized to distribute documents to members of the committee only when the documents are available in both official languages, and that the witnesses be advised accordingly.
All in favor? Good. Next.
Working meals, that the clerk of the committee be authorized to make the necessary arrangements to provide working meals for the committee and its subcommittees.
All in favor? Yes.
Travel accommodation and living expenses of witnesses, that if requested, reasonable travel accommodation and living expenses be reimbursed to the witnesses not exceeding 2 representatives per organization, provided that in exceptional circumstances, payment for more representatives may be made at the discretion of the chair.
All in favor? Good. Proceed, Mr.
access to in-camera meetings, that unless otherwise ordered, each committee member be allowed to have one staff member at an in-camera meeting, and that one additional person from each House officer's office be allowed to be present.
Any opposition? No.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Due to the fact that these standing orders seem to have been written in the pre-COVID era, can I just ask the clerk for what that means for virtual meetings and for hybrid meetings?
Roger?
Thank you, Mr. Albus. I was actually thinking about that when he was reading about the motion. So I'm indeed, during in-camera proceedings, we are allowed to have staff from government house leader or the whips, and they show up during, like here in the Zoom meeting, you will see them. Their cameras are off, but they're there. So one per party, and also one staff per party as well. So like an administrative staff. So one for the Liberals, one for the Conservatives, and so on. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but they're allowed to be in the Zoom meeting as though they were at the table. It's just that their cameras are off and they're not allowed to speak, but they are in the room.
Thank you.
And great. Through security, you won't be allowed entrance because that's what the clerk controls. Okay. Next, Monsieur Longfield.
A new world. Transcripts of in-camera meetings, that one copy of the transcript of each in-camera meeting be kept in the committee clerk's office for consultation by members of the committee or by their staff.
Any questions? No. Yes, Mr. Albus.
So again, given it being a COVID environment, it may not be reasonable to have someone physically present themselves, particularly if there are conditions that deny entry. So I'd just like to hear how the clerk will be prepared to address this issue if we pass this.
Roger?
Yes, so in terms of going to the clerk's office, this is the only virtual meeting that we're going to have. All the other meetings, MPs can join in person and other MPs can join virtually. Now, the same can be said for the clerk's office. If you want to see the copies right now for in-camera meetings, the only way would come to the clerk's office. We keep 2 meters distance, and then you can consult the documents at my office. My office is available, and we can take precautions. I can tell management, for example, that the MP is going to join me at my office, but everything should be and is workable in that regards right now. We can't, unfortunately, for reasons of security, send in-camera transcripts by email. But if you are connected through the house, you can come to the office and we can I can show you the paper documents there. I think Mr. Albus has more questions.
Yes, just again, Madam Chair, I do appreciate that the clerk can be put in difficult situations to address hypotheticals, but it may not be reasonable to say that a member or their staff, shall be able to have physical access when physical access may be ordered by a health authority or by the House itself. So given the fact that we are given the same protections like on our speech, in this virtual setting, I would hope that the same privileges, and I hate using the term, but the ancient sense of privilege, meaning that it's privileged information and access, can be accommodated to if there was a pandemic-related reason. And so if I don't think we need it now, but if there is a case where we are not able to physically be present due to some sort of health order, I would like the clerk and committee members just to be alert to the fact that we may need to bring an amended version so that we do not deny members their rights.
Mr. Albus, sorry, go ahead, Roger.
Mr. Albus, the point on privilege is a very good one, and indeed it is privileged information. I can tell you, representing the House administration, that if something were to happen and it would not be possible to see the documents, the House administration would put the documents available for you, the MPs of the committee, to consult that would certainly happen, and we would make things at your disposal. I have no doubt about that. And this is something actually my management is listening on to this meeting right now, so we'll take note of it. And if you'd like, I can come back to you at a further date with it.
Can we proceed now? Okay. Mr. Longfield.
Sure, assuming unanimous consent on that one.
Yes, yes.
Notice of motion, that a 48-hour notice interpreted as 2 nights shall be required for any substantive motion to be considered by the committee unless the substantive motion relates directly to the business then under consideration, provided that 1, the notice be filed with the clerk of the committee no later than 4 p.m. from Monday to Friday, and that 2, the motion be distributed to the members in both official languages by the clerk on the same day. The said notice was transmitted if it was received no later than the deadline hour, and that 3, notices received after the deadline hour or on non-business days be deemed to have been received during the next business day, and that when the committee is traveling on official business, no substantive motions may be moved.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Albus?
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear, and maybe we may want to put this in the motion itself, that Ottawa time should always be the time. Unfortunately, there's no reference to that. And so I would just ask the clerk if there could be some amendment made to clarify that. I just want to apologize to my fellow member from British Columbia, because that always puts us at odds in terms of being 3 hours behind.
Roger, you had your hand out.
Yes,
you wanted to.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Albus. The time in this notice for the notices of motion is the time when the clerk's office receives the motion by email. And so that's always what has been used, and that's what it will continue to be used. If you want to put it in the motion as an amendment, of course, the committee can do that. But it's always been understood that the 4 p.m. is Ottawa time because it's the timestamp when I receive the motion in the inbox.
Are you satisfied?
I think that's fair as long as everyone knows the rule.
Okay. Mr. Longfield?
All right. Orders of reference from the House respecting bills. That in relation to the orders of reference from the House respecting bills, A, the clerk of the committee shall, upon the committee receiving such an order of reference, write to each member who is not a member of the caucus represented on the committee to invite those members to file with the clerk of the committee in both official languages any amendments to the bill which is subject to the said order, which they would suggest that the committee consider. And B, suggested amendments be filed pursuant to paragraph A at least 48 hours prior to the start of clause-by-clause consideration of the bill to which the amendments relate, shall be deemed to be proposed during the said consideration, providing that the committee may, by motion, vary this deadline in respect to a given bill. And C, during the clause-by-clause consideration of a bill, the chair shall allow a member who filed suggested amendments pursuant to paragraph A an opportunity to make brief presentations in support of them.
Questions? Hearing none? Agreed? Okay,
Agreed.
Mr. Longfield?
I've run out of
all the routine motions.
All the routine motions, unless there are any others.
So now I guess you need to ask for approval of the total amended, whatever amendments have come to.
So I would ask for the total package with amendments to be approved by the committee.
So agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you. Now I think, did Raj, you have your hand up? Yes. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I want to make a motion.
Okay.
Is the proper time?
I guess any time is proper time for motions.
Okay. So the motion is that pursuant to Standing Order 81(4) and the Order of Reference of September 30th, 2020, the committee should consider, or the committee consider, the main estimates and invite the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and senior officials to appear in view of the study.
And you want to explain why? You mute yourself. You have muted yourself. You've muted yourself again.
I think it's important because I think that, we should have the minister here, to give us the estimates, give us the financial review, where the department's at, where they're going. And I think it's always good to start any session with a meeting with the minister so we understand where the department's thinking is.
Any questions from, yes, Mr. Longfield?
I think we've missed a period. So to get this going forward, I agree that this is something that we should be getting on top of right away to catch us up.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Albus.
Just in regards, the member is talking about the main estimates, or is he talking about previous to that?
Mr. Asani?
Main estimates.
Okay, the current main estimates.
Yeah.
In that case, Madam Chair, having confirmed that, I would like to put a deadline or a timeline. Perhaps then I make the motion before the November 6th of this year.
Is this a friendly amendment before November 6th of this year? Is that what I hear from you, Mr. Albus?
Well, I'm not asking for a friendly amendment. I put forward a motion, and then I'll make my points from there.
So procedural wise, I need to first take a vote on Mr. Sani's motion, and if it is a friendly amendment, then I'll have to do a friendly amendment.
Yeah, point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
If you've deemed the motion in order, then I can put up an amendment to said motion.
So you are making an amendment to this motion?
Yes.
Okay.
If I didn't make that clear, that's on me.
Okay, sorry, you didn't. I thought you wanted another motion to be this to be read. Okay, so all those, do you want to explain yourselves now that you've presented an amendment?
I believe that members have said multiple times that we're behind. I believe the member who made the motion said that this has some urgency. I believe that the main estimates are part of our primordial duty to this place. And so putting November 6th basically gives the minister a working frame, and I look forward to seeing him. I also have a question as well, but I think putting a timeline on the main motion would be important, and I do hope that all members support it.
Any questions of Mr. Albus? No? All those in favor of the motion as amended? Mr. Roger, am I doing the right thing here? Because we're not here in consultation, so just say mm-mm.
You're doing fine, Madam Chair.
Okay.
As usual, if there is a unanimous consent, no need for a recorded division. And if there isn't, then I proceed to recorded division.
Before I move to ask for unanimous consent, Madame Posé, was your hand raised up for the same motion or for something else?
No, Madame la Présidente, c'est pour autre chose.
No, Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to another matter.
Are you asking for unanimous consent?
Unanimous consent.
Agreed.
Yes, agreed? Okay, yeah. Good, carried. I have Madame Posé first, and then Mr. Albus.
Oui.
I'm happy that we are going to start the committee's work and get a lot of work done. I have a motion that I would like to present. I would like to...
Sorry, I'd love to hear the motion, but could we dispose of the motion that's on the table first before we enter into another motion?
I thought we had unanimous consent. So
no,
for
just on Dan Albus's amendment, and now we have to accept the motion as amended.
Thank you very much. I thought I said that, but if I didn't, my fault. So.
And sorry, Madame Posé.
Not a problem. All those in favor of the motion.
Madam
yes,
Chair.
Yes, Mr. Albus.
I did have a further question because unfortunately I only heard, I was looking for a timetable. If maybe you could read the motion as amended, I can find out if I'm satisfied, because I do think that it might be missing another piece.
Okay, Mr. Sani, would you like to read your motion and incorporate Mr.
Sure.
Albus's?
Just give me 1 second. So the motion is that pursuant to Standing Order 81 bracket 4 and the order of reference of September 30th, 2020, the committee consider the main estimates and invite the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change and senior officials to appear in view of the study.
I think you said no later than November 4th was the amended motion.
And no later than November 6th.
Oh, 6th, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Albus.
Okay, I do beg the indulgence of the committee because I'm an imperfect human being. But I do believe that it's always helpful to indicate that what the expectation would be for 1 hour with the minister, and that the second hour would be with officials, so that we can ask technical questions as follow-ups. So if that's a friendly amendment and that can be incorporated into that, I would just look to the member. If not, I can make the relevant motion to amend.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so now, Mr. Clark, have you taken in the friendly amendments? So the additional amendment you've given is that the first hour be the minister and the second hour be the departmental officials.
If the minister wants to stay, because we're such a great group, I'm okay with that.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as amended, do I need to have it reread? No? Okay. So now that we have the amendments, now I ask for the vote on the motion itself. All those in favor of the motion as amended? Good. Now that we have done with that, I will go to Madame Posey first. Then, did you have, Mr. Albus, did you have your hand up for something else?
Yes, for a different motion, and I'll wait my turn.
Okay, so Madame Posey.
I would like to understand. So, motions. You can proceed. So, motions must be presented with 48 hours or 48 hours ahead of time. Can I now table a motion like Mr. Albus is doing? I'd like to do so. I have a little issue with how the committee is functioning right now. So do I present a motion and then we discuss it in subcommittee when we set up a calendar or an agenda, or do we just discuss things generally in committee? So this is a point of order. I'm trying to understand how we're functioning here. I can't hear anything.
Oh, he's talking on the phone. I thought he was responding.
No, Madame Posey, you are,
Sorry, Mr. Clerk.
because we are in committee business, you are allowed to present your motion. Madame Posey, qu'est-ce que votre motion?
What is your motion? All right, I will present my motion. I would like to present two motions. The first is a plan to phase out carbon. I will read my motion. In accordance with 108.2, ENVI committee should undertake a study and make recommendations to set up a plan to phase out coal in order to transition toward clean renewable energy sources. In order to accomplish this, ENVI should invite foremost experts as witnesses, experts in wind energy and other types of clean energy. They should be invited to appear before the committee, and we should have an entire meeting dedicated to this topic. Second motion. in accordance with Standing Order 1082, ENVI should undertake a study about the goal in the speech from the throne to implement a plan for Canada to obtain or achieve, rather, its climate change goals so that we can become a zero emissions country. That this leads to a report being given to the House of Commons and that we dedicate 4 meetings to this study.
Sorry, Mr. Albers, do you have a question on that motion, or do you have a new motion to present?
I have my own motion to present, so I'll wait to the correct time. I am a little confused, though, because having 2 separate motions, I wonder if the member is giving notice of motion, or if we're going to have which, yeah, I look to you, Madam Chair, to explain which motion is actually on the table for discussion.
And that is something that I will have to ask Madame Posey to clarify. Mr. Longfield, are you asking a question on this motion? No? You're muted. Sorry.
I think we're just giving notices of motion, but I'll let Madame Posey speak to that.
Okay, Madame Posey, would you like to explain which one do you want the committee to consider? You see, this is where when we are in le deux.
Écoutez, c'est déjà en avis, les motions sont en avis et je...
There has already been notice of motion. Mr. Roger has received them and they are translated. Yes, Madame Posey, we have both.
We will be circulating them. They're in both official languages right now. I think, je pense que la question du comité en ce moment, c'est à savoir.
I believe that the issue for the committee now is to find out which motion you want to look at first, and then you will present the second motion, and then you can vote, and there will be questions on the second motion. So the issue right now is which motion would you rather look at first? I am sorry, but I could not hear Roger. I could not hear what he said. I can repeat. So the issue for the committee right now is to decide which motion you want to debate first and make a decision, and then we can move to the second motion, so there can be a second decision. We can only debate one motion at a time because we have to vote.
Mr. Longfield.
Yeah, I also wanted to give notice of motion for a motion that I had, and I'm thinking we've gone from getting our structure put in place. Maybe we could get these motions over to a subcommittee so that we get a whole list of motions for the subcommittee to consider, so that we're not picking and choosing until we have all our motions on the floor.
I agree with you, Mr. Longfield, because it's confusing everybody. Not all of us have received everybody's motions, and we'd like to at least have a look at the motion before we can ask intelligent questions. Mr. Albers. Sure,
yeah,
Mr. Albers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're clearly in committee business.
Yes.
The member has a right to have the motion tabled. I believe you've said that it's an order. I just think for the purposes of today, I would like to know if the Cole motion is what we're discussing first, then we can separate out the second motion of the member. I recognize that some members may find this process confusing, but committee business is exactly that, committee business, and she does have a right, I believe, to table her motions and have them debated.
And I don't think that Mr. Longfield was denying her right to present the motions. I think we are in committee business, but the thing is, we still haven't got clarity as to what motion Madame Posey wants us to discuss.
Well, Madam Chair, quite honestly, as the chair, you should just say I'm ruling the second one out of order because we only can do one thing at a time. That would be a reasonable way, in my opinion. But then again, I'm not the chair.
And thank you, Mr. Albus. Thank you for telling me what my job should be. Madame Posey has the right to present two motions, but she also has the right to say which motion she would like us to even reflect on. You might want to present three motions. I won't rule you out of order, but I think Madame Posey should be given the opportunity to tell us clearly whether she wants the first motion or the second motion. Madame Posey, choisir quelle motion vous présentez.
Madame Posey, please select which one of your motions. So it's okay. So I'm going to table as a first motion the one on the zero emission, the one I presented. The committee will look at the possibility of legislation and that a report be presented to the House of Commons. Well, this is my priority because it's aligned on the speech from the throne.
Her first motion on zero emissions, correct, Madame Posey? Are there any questions for Madame Posey? Yes, Mr. Albus.
Again, I have to say I'm sorry to Madame Posey to ask the question again. Could you read the motion out so I know clearly which issue we're debating? Both of them did relate to emissions, and so I don't want to be debating the wrong motion.
Madame Posey, you're in.
So I'm going to read it slowly. That pursuant to Standing Offer 108.2, the committee starts a study in compliance with the will from the speech from the throne to have a plan. Sorry, the interpreter can't hear. She's too far from her microphone, and the interpreter does not have the motion.
Madame Posey, your mic, votre micro, bring it closer to your mouth because the interpreter cannot hear you, therefore cannot translate.
Okay.
Merci.
Est-ce que je dois recommencer au début?
Oui, merci.
Est-ce que les interprètes m'entendent bien?
Can interpretation hear her? We've lost interpretation too. Yes, Roger?
I have the motions in English.
Je pense que Monsieur le greffier les a envoyés.
Oui, j'ai envoyé la motion en français et en anglais.
I did send the motions in French and in English.
Their P9 accounts. But whatever the case may be, I have the motions in French and in English, so I can read both versions if you'd like. I'm just offering my help.
Madame Posey, would you mind?
Madame,
the clerk read out your motion because you are having some technical difficulties. Go if she's in agreement. So Roger, can you read it, please? Now you are mute. Roger, you're mute. She's agreed.
I'm sorry. Would you like me to read it in French or in English?
I guess most of them are anglophones, so peut-être anglais, s'il vous plaît.
Okay.
But you have already sent it to everyone on their P9 account.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. It's actually my staff that sent it. I'm just going to open it and read it in English.
And if you guys can open up your P9 account, you will see the motion there as well.
Okay, so here I go.
Point of order, Madame la Présidente.
Point of order. Yes, Madam Chair. The interpreter is saying that unfortunately, they don't have a copy of the motion. and she won't be able to give a precise interpretation. So I think we have a problem here. A motion has to be very precise in English as well as in French. So I won't be able to rely on the interpretation. Legislative text, a motion cannot be interpreted. Mr. Godin, when you look P9, you have it in both languages, and you have the precise translation.
Has the motion in front of them. Do you really want the clerk to read it out? Yes? Okay. Roger?
So in English, that pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the Standing Committee on Environment and Sustainable Development undertake a study in connection with the desire expressed in the speech from the throne to put in place a plan that will make it possible to surpass Canada's climate objectives, and that to do so, the committee examine the feasibility of zero-emission federal legislation, that a report be presented to the House of Commons, and that 4 meetings be devoted to it.
Thank you. Mr. Longfield, I'd seen your hand up, but if you didn't have your hand up and I saw something in error, then I apologize.
No, my hand was, after we finished with these motions, I was going to introduce one, so I'll just lower my hand.
Okay. Any questions to Madame Posey?
Is this debate, Madam Speaker or Madam Chair?
Yes, you can debate it.
Okay. The reason why I would simply say that the Conservatives will be voting in opposition to this is not because we disagree that there's some usefulness of the committee looking into what the climate plan of the government is. I will say that what they are undertaking in this country is not working at this time. We're seeing rising emissions, and we're seeing too many people without work. And Conservatives want to see people working. We want to see emissions on a proper track. But the plan the government has put forward has not been working. And I think the PBO had a lot to say about their carbon tax today. That being said, the government has said that it will be putting forward legislation in regards to the net zero targets that are mentioned in this motion. That would mean that there would be both debate in the House, and anything would then be referred for us to further study. That, without having meaningful legislation that guides exactly what the government intends to do in the approach, I think that doing 4 meetings on this and then having to look at that legislation a second time, I think is duplicative and will not be a good use of our time. So what I would suggest to members is to simply vote no on this. We will probably be seeing that. I also want to illustrate that there is a piece of private members' business that my understanding will be before the House that also addresses it. I believe it's actually a member from the Bloc Québécois that is proposing the legislation in terms of climate targets and net zero. So there are multiple opportunities that the House of Commons will have that the Environment Committee must respond to if that legislation is passed through second reading. And we will then have all of the stakeholders that members want to hear to talk about the legislation. So rather than talking about desires and the throne speech, I certainly appreciate Madame Posey's urgence that she'd like to study this. However, I think that we would be duplicating work that doesn't need to happen at this time. And I would like us to look at other elements of the government's plan that is not working. As I said, too many people are not working, as well as emissions going up, as well as critical habitat being lost. And so I think we should just defer this and vote no now and defer this until the legislation comes forward.
Thank you, Mr. Albus. I've got Mr. Longfield, Mr. Baker, Mr. Shifke, and then Madame Posey. Mr. Longfield.
Thank you, and congratulations to Madame Posey. I think this is a great motion. both motions are excellent, and I would love to take both of those motions forward. But we're talking about this first one, and it does align very well with the work of our committee. And there will be disagreements on what we study and how we study, and that's part of the work of the committee as well. But I think to get this forward and get this discussed would be a very important thing for us to go forward with. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Mr. Baker?
Thanks very much, Chair. And I wanted to make a couple points. First of all, in response to Mr. Albus's comments, I think when I read the motion, I thought what makes this incrementally helpful is that Madame Posé has said that we should study the feasibility of zero emission federal legislation, which I think is it's a useful. She's not saying we should study the legislation itself. She's saying we should study the feasibility of it, which I think is a useful study for us. It's useful information for us to have an insight so that we as members of the Environment Committee can better are prepared to better understand that in the context of any legislation that does come forward. So I think that would be. I just wanted to make the point that I think it's a useful thing for us to do. It's not duplicative. In terms of, I had a question for Madame Posé, or a clarifying question for Madame Posé, which was, or two questions really. One was in the when we say zero emission federal legislation, do we mean net zero, or is this just zero? So that's just a clarifying question that I would want to ask. And then secondly, I'm wondering if Madame Posé could just elaborate a little bit on why what she's trying to achieve with this motion. So in my response to Mr. Albus, I've communicated what I think the intention was, but I don't want to, sort of put words in Madame Posé's mouth. I would love to hear from her as to what her rationale was. So my two questions is it zero or net zero? And number two is, could Madame Posé elaborate a little bit on her rationale for this motion?
So what I'll do is I'll let Mr. Shifke speak, and then Madame Posé will respond to any of your questions. Monsieur Shifke, Madame Posé, would you mind if everybody asks, you consolidate everybody's questions, because I've seen a few hands rise up. Mr. Shifke.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to also add my thanks to Monique Posé for her motion. I wholeheartedly agree and think this is something that we should be using the resources and the time of the committee to study. Since 2015, Madam Chair, we've done a great deal. I mean, we've worked very hard to reach a point where projections show that we'll have reached about 200 megatons of our approximately 280 megaton goal to reach the Paris targets. We did that through a price on pollution. We did that through putting in place subsidies for electric vehicles, investing record amounts, as you know, Madam Chair, in green infrastructure, public transportation. And we've got new initiatives on the way with, looking into clean fuel standards, planting 2 billion trees, which we're doing a lot of work to study exactly how we can do that in a way that allows us to protect as many species as possible while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So we've done a lot, but we're the first to say that there's always more that we can do. And I think that's the spirit of Madame Posé's motion. It's to say, what else can we do to help Canada achieve this necessary and urgent objective of not only meeting, but surpassing our Paris targets. And so I think that we should be using the resources and the time of the committee to provide additional ideas that we as a government can adopt and invest in to help us meet that goal. It's imperative that we do so. And I just want to say merci Madame Posé pour votre motion. Je vote en faveur. Je pense que...
Thank you very much, Madame Posé, for your motion. I think it's a good way to use the resources of our committee to help us achieve our Paris target. Thank you.
Question?
Monsieur Sani.
Unmute. Yeah. Unmute. Unmute. You're muted again. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions for Madame Posé. I would suggest some points of clarity in the motion. You have zero emissions. I would maybe change it to net zero emissions. And the other thing is you have 6 written in English, but you have 4 in brackets. So I just want clarity on if you could agree to make it net zero, and is it 6 or 4 meetings you want?
Madame Posey, the floor is yours. Was anybody else's hands up before and I've not listened? Okay, Madame Posey. Oh, sorry, but pardon. Miss Collins has a question for you. Miss Collins, you have a question. Has a question, right? Okay.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank Madame Posey for bringing this forward, and yeah, I'm always wanting to be talking about putting our climate targets into law. I do think the framing of it, I really kind of want us to be starting from a place of honesty about where we're at, which is that we have missed every single climate target that this government has set, that we are not currently on track to meet our 2030 targets, and that my concern about net zero federal legislation for 2050 is that is 2 decades too late, that we really need to be clear that we have less than a decade to meet our 2030 targets, and that we are currently on track to miss those. And so I just wanted to maybe get some points of clarification about where Madame Posey was starting from, and if there is some way we can ensure that, yeah, we're just clear about where we're at and how far we have to go.
So, Madame Collins, are you proposing an amendment to her motion?
I think
you're just asking a clarification question. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Albers, did you have a question for Madame Posey?
Yes, actually, I did. I just wanted to find out if, because quite honestly, I will be voting against the motion overall, but I do have an interest in obviously the working of the committee, and just wanted to ask the member if whether or not she has contemplated there's stakeholders that are mentioned, but you know, I think including the minister in the motion would be an effective use of time, because right now we've heard, you know, the throne speech, but we don't have a lot of details. And so I do think having the minister to come in as part of the motion to start off the study, I think would be probably welcome by opposition members. I believe that accountability is always good, and so hopefully the Liberal colleagues would agree with that. So I'll just ask the member if she thinks that that should be included, and if not, I just want to hear what she has to say first before I make any motion to amend.
Okay, go ahead. Madame Posey. Votre réponse?
Thank you for your comments. Can you hear me? All right. So what is a Zero Emission Act? What I am proposing is that we study whether it is possible at a federal level. In California, they have a Zero Emission Act, and it in fact encourages Californian businesses to produce and sell electric vehicles. And Quebec also has an Emissions Act. The population of Quebec, though, is 10 million, whereas the population of California is similar to the population of Canada. So, could Canada do what California has done? Could we provide further incentives to businesses to produce, manufacture electric vehicles? The Bloc Québécois has criticized the speech from the throne, but when it comes to electrifying transportation or having more electric transportation, we support that. That is a way of decreasing our emissions. Take Norway, for instance. In Norway, they have a ton of electric cars, and it has allowed them to decrease their emissions. There is a there are business advantages, in fact, to my proposal and to zero emissions. This would create cars, this would create jobs, and this would be positive on the whole. There are experts we could invite to appear before committee. There are so many groups in Canada, groups of experts who could come and speak to us about this topic. So I believe I've answered the questions asked of me. As for clarifying the number, it would be 4 meetings. These groups all over Canada have already done all the legwork, and 4 meetings, it's not a lot of meetings, but I don't want to take all the committee's time and all the committee's meetings. But what we should study is the feasibility of such an act. Is it feasible to have such an act, a Zero Emissions Act in Canada? Yes or no? And then we would present to the House of Commons, and the House of Commons would hopefully adopt such legislation. What are your thoughts? That's all from me for right now.
Have your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Madame Posé, j'avais une question.
Madame Posé, I would like to ask a question. Can you clarify something for me? When you say zero emissions, in English we say net zero. Is it net zero? Or when you say zero emissions, are you referring to something different? So that's my first question for you. Next. Well, I support the motion. I think it's a great idea. In my opinion, 4 meetings would be good. And we've been discussing whether it should be 4 or whether it should be 6 meetings. This motion proposes that we study a very important topic, but a topic that is also quite complex. I think, in fact, we should have 6 meetings to really study in depth. May I answer the question? Yes. In English, it doesn't say net emissions. It says net zero. It says no emissions. So in fact, these are 2 different terms. It's zero emissions. Take Quebec or California. They have zero emission laws. I suggested 4 meetings, but I'd be quite happy with 6 because, yes, the subject is complex and very important.
It's written 6. Into brackets, it's put 4. So if you want to change it to 4, perhaps that's what, if you've made a mistake that way, 6 ou 4. Okay? Thank you. Mr. Albus, after that, Mr. Longfield and Madame Collins.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the member for clarifying that the net zero versus zero emission. That does bring into the question of feasibility, and I would like for us, and I'm going to make a motion to amend the member's motion that as part of it, and maybe I'll just bring it up so that the clerk doesn't have to pull all of his hair out, that perhaps that right after we say the committee examine the feasibility of zero emission federal legislation, comma, and then I would add this in, have witnesses starting with the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, as well as other pertinent witnesses. That's my motion, and I'd be happy to give a rationale if you find it in order, Madam Chair.
You have the right to put an amendment to the motion. If you explain yourself, then I can ask the committee members for their questions or their vote.
Yes. Okay. So so far in this discussion, there's been a few different questions that have been asked to the member. But quite honestly, anything that the government holds all the cards when it comes to its throne speech and implementing its agenda as in terms of a first mover. And so the clarification by Madame Posey was very important, specifically saying that she is targeting zero emissions, not net zero, as was raised by MP Baker. So I do want to, include any discussion should start with the minister. I believe in ministerial accountability and to hear so that we can shape our study in a way that helps us to understand the issue better. I hope that all members believe that having the minister who will have both the research from Environment Canada as well as has principal responsibility for any potential legislation would then believe that starting with the minister is top on the agenda for us. So I'm looking for all party support for this. Despite, I just one last note is 6 meetings, particularly since we may have legislation at some point, seems to be a bit excessive. But I'm just going to leave the point there and just say on my motion to amend, let's have the minister come in and tell us about the feasibility of that.
Mr. Albers, now that you have proposed an amendment, I will have to take questions from people who want to speak to the amendment. So, Madame, Mr. Longfield, do you want to speak to Mr. Albers's amendment or no? He's not there. Madame Collins, do you want? She was next in line. Madame Collins.
My question applies to.
Sorry.
I had a question of clarification for Madame Posey, and I won't be able to vote on Mr. Albus's motion without really understanding the main motion itself. And so the question for Madame Posey is, you're talking about zero emission legislation and referenced the California legislation, which is actually zero emission vehicle legislation, if I am recalling correctly. This is different from climate accountability legislation, which is legislating the laws, be it in 5-year increments or 10-year increments, around ensuring that we get to net zero by 2050 and that we're meeting our climate targets. And so I just wanted to, I was curious if this motion, when we're talking about zero emission legislation, is just in reference to zero emission vehicles, or if we're also talking about all the other elements of getting to zero emissions, which would include things like retrofitting of buildings and transforming our other transportation, active transportation, all of the pieces around fossil fuel development and that kind of thing.
So what, Madame Collins, you are addressing Madame Posey's original motion. So I'll let her answer it, but I want questions to Monsieur Albus as well. So because we don't want to confuse the issue, there is a motion on the floor, an amendment, and I have to take the amendment first. So if anybody has any questions
Madam
for, yes.
To vote or understand how I would approach the amendment to the motion without actually.
Okay, sure. So I will let Madame Posey answer your question, and then Mr. Albus, she needs to understand what Madame Posey has actually said before she questions you on your amendments. Fair enough. Go ahead. Madame Posey, votre micro, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, alors merci. Effectivement, pour Madame Collins.
Miss Collins, I am referring to vehicles. Transportation is the #1 source of GHG emissions, so we need to first tackle vehicle emissions. Such an act would ensure that more people and more businesses are manufacturing, selling, buying, driving electric vehicles. All vehicles. which, as I said, is the #1 culprit for GHG emissions. Zero emission vehicle program or low emission vehicle regulation. Those are some of the names for these acts in other jurisdictions. I hope that I have answered my colleagues' questions. And now, since I have the floor, may I speak to Mr. Albus's amendment? Madam Chair?
Line, but you may speak to it if nobody is going to yell at me. Go ahead, Madame Posey, since you have the floor.
Yes. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am against Mr. Albus's amendment. Can you hear me here? I'm against Mr. Albus's motion. That can come after we've established feasibility. But as we're just starting out, I think that amendment would be too much. I think that we need to hear from experts. And as I said, there are expert groups all over the country who are subject matter experts. And we really need to study the feasibility of such legislation. So yes, we could invite the minister later, but I don't think that's essential at this first step.
It's up that I bypassed because I let so Mr. Longfield, you were on my list. If you have any questions for Mr. Albus, none. Mr. Baker, did you have a question for Mr. Albus to his amendment?
Yes. So in terms of the amendment, I'm of the view that we're going to have the minister attending. We passed a motion earlier that I think was moved by Mr. Saini, that the minister was going to attend committee, and we have the opportunity to ask him questions then about this topic or other topics, and that that allows you to drive that accountability that you were trying to achieve. But I'm with Madame Posey on this, that here this is a situation where I think Madame Posey's intention is to study the feasibility of this legislation that she's talking about, and I think that would be best informed by people who are experts in that field, advising us and advising the government, not the other way around. Those are my thoughts on that topic.
And Mr. Sani, you had your hand raised up, and was it for a question to Mr. Albus?
No, it was a question to Madame Posey.
On her
original motion.
Okay, I'll allow that, and then I'll take a vote on Mr. Albus's amendments.
Yeah, I think if Madame Posey wants to study zero emission vehicles, that should be clearly put in the motion. When she says zero emission federal legislation, that's unclear to me. It either can be net zero federal legislation or zero emission vehicles. She can choose, and I think because of the importance of the topic, it should be at least 6 meetings.
Okay, Mr. Albus, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just point out a few things. First of all, this is talking about legislation. And if we're going to talk about feasibility of any plan, it's going to come down to the government's ability to legislate. So to say that the Minister of Environment and Climate Change does not have the expertise or is not germane to the discussion, I think is not feasible. It's strange that we would not be asking the minister to come and talk about something that is his responsibility, that was raised in the throne speech, that is referenced in the member's own submission, this motion. And I'm a big believer, Madam Chair, that you go hard on the policy and you're good to the people. So I certainly appreciate the member's right to be able to bring this, but I do think the amendment increases our ability to understand the issue, particularly when we've effectively given this 6 meetings. Surely we can carve time out for the minister who will be responsible for inevitable legislation to ask questions pertinent to the feasibility of this proposition that the member is espousing. Remember that California has more people than all of Canada and has a much different temperament. So I do think that the minister should be involved. And if Liberal members don't want to see ministerial accountability, if they don't feel that their own minister, who will eventually have to champion whatever bill for them that they come up with, if they can't have the faith that he can come to this committee prior and answer a few basic questions, I think that says more about their approach to ministerial accountability. That being said, I hope no one takes offense. I always try to be hard again on the policy and good to the people. And I will see how this motion turns out, or this amendment votes out. Thank you.
Madam Collins, do you have a question for Mr. Albus?
Kind of question statement, just maybe clarifying my previous comments. I think I would have voted in favor of Mr. Albus's motion if this was talking about net zero legislation, climate accountability, but given the clarification that Madame Posé gave, which is that it's just narrowly focused on zero emission vehicle legislation. And maybe just also I want to correct the record. Madame Posé said the transportation sector is the leading emitter of greenhouse gases in Canada. The oil and gas industry is Canada's leading GHG emitter. Emissions from the transportation sector are a close second, and buildings are third. And so I think if we were going to invite the minister for something, I would want to be covering all of those things, and not just narrowly focused on zero emission vehicles. And I do, agree with Mr. Sani that we should, once we've gotten through this amendment, voting on it, that we should amend it to make that clear that vehicles are in there. And I think because it's narrowly focused on zero emission vehicles, that 4 meetings seems like enough. That's it.
Thank you. And any further discussion on the topic? Mr. Rogers, I'm going to call for the vote, and the clerk will take the recorded vote.
So the vote is on the amendment by Mr. Albus to add to the motion that we invite the minister and pertinent officials. Mr. Baker.
Vote against.
Mr. Longfield. Mr. Longfield.
We can't hear you. Just do up or down.
Okay, Mr. Longfield votes nay. Mr. Sani.
Je vote contre la motion.
Against.
Barry.
Je vote contre la motion.
Against.
Okay.
Vote against the motion.
Mr. Albus.
I vote for the motion.
Monsieur Godin.
Je suis pour.
In favor.
I vote in favor of the motion.
Mr. Redekop.
I'm in favor of the motion.
Madame Posé.
Contre.
Against.
I vote against the motion.
Je vote contre la motion.
Pour, contre, 4. Nays. Pour, yeas, 4. Nays, contre, 7.
So the amendment to the motion is defeated. Now let's vote on the main motion. Madame Collins.
Just a point of clarification about the process. When we're voting for or against this, is this, are we in any way deciding the order in which we proceed with studies, or is this just a general in favor or against this motion?
No, you're not deciding what is the priority of studies. What you're deciding is what we may study given the time, and that's why the steering committees are so important, to give out the timetable so everybody can plug in what we should study. Okay?
I would like an amendment to the motion to the word vehicles after zero emission.
Okay, what is your amendment?
to add the word vehicle after the word zero emission. So between zero emission and legislation. Federal, sorry, zero emission and the words federal legislation.
So any questions? Yeah.
So my thinking is that this motion that the honorable member has brought forward, Madam Posey, but I don't know why we're focusing just on vehicles. That's more of a transport question. I think the spirit of her motion should be more expansive, and let's look at it as net zero emissions economy, country, rather than focusing very narrowly just on vehicles. Because if it's just vehicles, that's a Transport of Canada issue or the Transport Committee issue. Why don't we be more expansive, take the time to have 6 studies, and look at the matter in a broader manner?
Okay, Madame Collins, don't answer till I've got Mr. Jeanneroux, Mr. Albus, and Madame Posey.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Mine's more of just a clarification question for you. I've been at many meetings where you have been chair, and you've always run a good meeting on time. I've only put this meeting in for 2 hours in my calendar. I'm curious if we're extending, if we're not extending. I have another meeting that I'd have to then alter, but again, just referring to you.
Mr. Jeanneroux, no, we go by the clock, and we will be ending the meeting on time. My clock says 3 more minutes, so I can allow Mr. Albus a question and Madame Posey, and then we can. Yes, Mr. Albus.
Yeah, Madam Clerk, or Madam Chair, pardon. I had my hand up so that after the business I could put forward my own motion, but it does not look like we will have sufficient time to even deal with this one.
Madame Posey?
I'd like to invite people to vote in favor of my motion, but really what I want is results. If the scope is too wide, no, that's not the idea. The idea is to have results on something that can help citizens fight the greenhouse gas emissions. In my opinion, they are about the same as the ones coming from the fuel sector. So we want something which will bring results without monopolizing the whole time of the committee. So this is why I was offering something on which the citizens can have an impact. And I'm going to stop there.
Myself, so Monsieur Baker, you got.
Thank you, Chair. Madame Posey, j'apprécie beaucoup votre.
Madame Posey, I do appreciate your intent, and I agree that the emissions from transportation are huge. That they be the first source of emissions or the second doesn't matter. In my opinion, I agree with Mr. Saini. When we started the discussion, I understood that your proposal was to study the feasibility of having a bill that would allow us to reach net zero emissions. So that's what I understood. So I'm of the opinion that if this was the goal,
here good discussions going on. We will have to continue committee business in the next meeting whenever we allowed. Hopefully, if the minister is coming, then we will have the minister and the departmental officials. But Ms. Collins amendment to the motion is a discussion point where we are leaving it at, and then we will handle, once that is over, we'll handle Madame Posé's motion as whatever agreed upon. D'accord?
D'accord.
The meeting is adjourned, and thank you very much all for such a wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you,
Bye.
colleagues. Bye-bye.
Bye.